This conference will now be recorded.
Any discussion? Thank you to Walter and Mary Bowden for your generous donation. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Make a motion that we accept $1,000 from David Barbudo Trust to the Tilton Welfare Department for needy families. Second, any discussion?
Thank you.
Yes.
Who does this yearly for us?
Very, 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 very generous. And I'm sure that we put it to good use.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None? Motion passes. Accept the $150 donation from the Tilton Police Department Union for Christmas decorations.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Thank you.
Thank you, police department.
Thank you to the police union for your generous donation. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Accept the $20 donation from the Greater Tilton Area Family Resource Center for the Christmas parade. Motion and second. Any discussion? None. Thank you for your donation. I believe that was for a float.
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Accept the $20 donation from Rowell Services for the Christmas parade.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Thank you to the Rowell Services for their donation. And be participating in the parade. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Make a motion that we accept the $20 donation from Sweet Dreams for the Christmas parade.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is Sweet Dream?
It's
I
a,
believe it's a,
they help comfort and put your pets down in your home when there's a serious situation with your animals.
Thank you ever so much for your generosity.
they come to you. All right. So thank you to Sweet Dreams for your donation. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Accept the $20 donation from Christy Heath for the Christmas parade.
Second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Any discussion? Hearing, thank you to Christy Heath for your donation. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion passes. Accept the $100 donation from Mix 94.1 Cash and Cans for the Christmas parade.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Again, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much to Mix 94.1 for being in the parade. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. All right. Well, thank you for everyone that came together to help us make our parade very special this year. It was a great turnout. And we look forward to next year's, and the Parks Commission for organizing the parade. It was a great turnout. Next on our agenda, Finance IT, Tim Pearson.
Great. Thank you. So in front of you, you have a budget report that I had sent out yesterday. And it is the printed report in front of you is the same as the one presented to the Budget Committee. They did vote on a number of items last night, and I can cover those when we go through them, but you also have my report. And before we get into the budget, I just wanted to point out a few things that the status of some projects for our sanitation collection contract. Bernard countersigned the extension letter, so we're all set for 22. If you recall back from late summer and the additional equipment that was needed for microwave communications between the towers and moving some of the repeaters, that Allcom project is now complete. And the PD is reporting outstanding coverage and penetration into buildings as well with the signals. So we're very pleased with that. And then also, just recently, the connection box was not only installed, but tested now more than once in a full capacity. And so that project is now complete for the Emergency Management Performance Grant, and I'll submit the paperwork for reimbursement. So those are just some status updates. As it relates to the budget, we really should begin voting on portions of the budget tonight if the board is willing. And if not, if you can let me know any areas that you'd like more investigation of, or go back to the department head. And I'll be sure we make that a priority. We really should be in a position to vote the whole budget at this point, I believe. And the changes that are in this budget versus the last iteration that you had, if you recall, there were a few minor wage items. One was an employee exiting the probationary period and receiving an increase, so that is now reflected in this budget for next year. As well as we had a resignation, and the hours for that position, which was a part-time position, were changed, along with resetting the wage, the starting wage for that position, and adjusting some of the responsibilities. So those are reflected in this, as well as Selectman Jessman had reported to me the cost of the tipping fees that will be effective February 1st, which is $74.20, or a $3.06 increase over the current tipping fees. Pardon me. And this is a pretty big departure from the normal fee schedule that Wheelabrator, now called Wind Waste, was doing over the years. And this is the last year of the contract. So last week I had put in what I thought were the estimates based on what I had in terms of what that was going to mean for us dollar-wise. I really scrubbed that and refined it this week, and I feel very confident about the numbers I have in here now. So there were some changes to the sanitation lines based on that. And also I would like to make note and change the name of the, or clarify the name of the construction and demolition line in the Public Works sanitation budget to reflect that it's for the transfer station fees. So these are the tipping fees that we have through NRRA, as well as the transportation fees. And it covers not only the normal things brought there on a weekly basis, but also amnesty, both amnesty weeks. So, so without objection, I'd just like to add the word transfer and make that a little clearer for people. Then also looking at the fuel, I did review with the Public Works Director his fuel line, and he agreed that needed to come up more. So additional money was added to Public Works fuel, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do the same consultation with the chief, but in looking at the budget, it was in a similar position. So I increased that. It could always be brought back down if she felt that it needed to be less, but it was on the same trajectory, and projecting out, it needed to be increased. In addition, the Director Duval had indicated some concerns with one of the vehicles, 2017, having some transaxle issues, and just concerned that it might require a transmission replacement. So he wanted to add more money into the PD vehicle maintenance line than we had before, primarily because the new vehicles, we're still not getting any better improvement on ship dates or delivery dates. So we are looking at the late third quarter of 22 for delivery. And he is confident that he can keep the fleet running until then properly, but he felt as though if one of these bigger items went, we weren't going to have sufficient budget for it. So that was added to this budget. And then also I've provided the list of estimated revenues for 22, and it represents just under a 2% increase in revenues over 21 when you take out the one-time revenue of the sale of the old police station. So if you take that out of the mix, looking at the actual 21 versus the estimated 22, once you remove that one-time item, we're up about 2%.
PD,
Yes.
under the PD, wrong one, with the exact one. Uh, 660,
equipment purchase.
Mhm. And the last one you gave us, it said you purchased one Tahoe.
Yes, and it still is for the 22.
Well, it says purchase two, authorization to purchase two Tahoe police cruisers of 70,000.
Right, so what that's showing is the note is intended to show that under the 21 unaudited expenses, you see, we budgeted $2,000 for that line. We're showing expenditures of $70,454. And the first note says for 2021, there's an authorization to purchase the two Tahoe cruisers with a balance from the detail fund. For 2022, it's budgeted to purchase one Tahoe with the upfitting costs. So it's.
So we haven't purchased the 2021. Are you encumbering that?
Yes, so this is, what this is showing is the expense was charged there and it's being encumbered for 22. That's correct. The budget committee or anyone else looking at the budget could be confused by the expenditure in 21. I can certainly take that note out of there, but it was intended to show why there was a change in 21 and also to show the budget for 22.
So if we authorize this budget as is, what we're saying to the public is that we authorize purchase of three cruisers within a very short period of time.
That's correct.
And two coming out of, one coming out of the budget and two coming out of the detail.
Well, detail, some of it from detail, but the majority of it from from the 21 expenditure budget. So you see the 70,454.
And what was the reason in not going to a warrant article or going to, like we always go to a detail, making a payment into the detail fund?
For 22,
For that third one.
for the third one, it certainly could be a warrant article. There's no reason why I couldn't. The chief, when she made her presentation, her intention was to see that the citizens see that every year the town should be purchasing a vehicle, and they should see that cost and understand that every year that's just a part of the normal operations of the police department, purchasing one vehicle a year.
Mhm.
But you're absolutely correct. It could just as easily be a warrant article and put in a separate warrant article for vote.
So we have a total of how many vehicles total? Do we have 11?
Well, when off the top of my head, I'm thinking 13, but we auctioned one. We have another coming offline, so I'd say that's probably pretty accurate.
And the 2022 one would make it 12. And we have, so that would make it,
I don't think there would be any objection to moving that into a separate warrant article. The reason, the issue with the detail fund is once the two that are currently expensed here and will be effectively encumbrances into 2022, that's requiring about 40 some odd $1,000 of detail fund money, which will pretty much deplete the detail fund. So the money that is being allocated in the 22 budget from the detail fund is expected to be, or we're projecting much less than our average, so that we're going to be safe that we have enough money in the detail fund at that point. But I would be, I think from the standpoint of looking at a year-to-year budget, it's much more palatable to take that out and put it into a warrant article, and because then you're looking at more, year-to-year, better year-to-year comparison. In other words, you would see this budget probably go down, by maybe almost 1 full percent, about 0.8%.
I'm trying to wrap my head around, a few percent increase and then trying to explain to the public that we've got 3 brand new cruises coming on board within, 6 to 8 month period. And then how are we gonna pay for them? Even though we sit and explain that, well, some of them are paid from monies out of the 2021 end of year budget, and then this one's gonna be paid out of taxation. Some might be paid out of that taxation, might be paid out of detail. We don't know. That's an unknown. So
Well,
then we have to think about whether or not we as a board are sanctioning the fact that we did our homework and said, do we actually need 3 brand new cruises, frontline cruises? Is the need there?
so I can tell you that the Warren article could read to use funds from the detail fund up to a certain amount. So it could state, to raise and appropriate funds of $71,000 for and specifications of the vehicle, and this much to be paid from taxation, this much to be paid from the detail fund. And someone says, well, what happens if the detail fund doesn't, generate that much? We'll just make sure that the percentage is safe, and barring that, until the detail fund has sufficient money, it won't be able to be executed. So.
I mean, I get where we need a cruiser a year, and I'd like the public to see that we need a cruiser a year. But we just got 2, so I think that justification needs to be, do we need to justify it this year, or do we need to justify it next year for a cruiser? That's my questions I have in my head that I'm trying to struggle with approving this budget. Is that cruiser? Do I approve that without that cruiser in it, or do I just say blanket approve this budget because I know it's a tight budget without that, with that cruiser in it, and take up bumps at a public hearing?
I personally think the budget committee would probably prefer it be taken out of the operating budget and be a separate warrant article. They seem to like that kind of thing on these special items, but at least in the past. But
What's your recommendation?
well, I guess it depends what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to, if you agree with the chief and you want it to be a continued central item in the operating budget, then I would say keep it in the operating budget, because it's not even at a full cost right now. It's only at a partial cost. But if what you're after is to give that decision to town meeting and really let them decide on that's, which accomplishes really the same thing for the chief. I mean, as long as a warrant article is brought up every year for a cruiser, it would accomplish, I would think, pretty much what she's after. But it would certainly make the budget look a lot better in terms of the operating budget year to year. But if they approve the cruiser, of course, that gets added to the operating budget for the equipment purchase line.
What's the full cost? If it's not at full cost, isn't this an oxymoron? If you
The full cost is 61,000 a piece. I believe I misspoke with 71,000, but right now these don't include the Patrol PC tablets, and we're moving the Patrol PC tablets from existing cruisers. But at some point, adding a cruiser will require buying a new one, and those are about last time I checked, they were about $6,500 a piece. So I would say about 7,000 additional for the mount and everything else.
So this $47,000 does not represent a full package.
No, because the
You're gonna take it out.
47,000 is being added to $16,000 So it's actually 45,000 and 16,000, and there's 2,000 being left in that line for other equipment purchases that may arise.
Hear from the rest of the board what they think.
I understand the need for the cars. I know that while we were putting together the new police station, we didn't get cars that we otherwise would have gotten or would have discussed at the very least. And now our fleet is aging. At least one of those frontline cruisers significantly, I think, in the police scheme of things. I support having proper equipment for the police department, and I know that's spending. I would like to see the warrant article so that the town, I get putting it in the budget, but if we put it in the budget, it's bound to get glossed over. Not like a conversation on the floor, look, this is why we need police cars, and, you know, I would rather see the warrant article.
I'm going to just really briefly, I concur with Joe's statement that, you know, a warrant article on that one, the two get us going, and then we can explain it and have more information when it comes to town meeting.
I don't think that there's any question of the need. I think we agree on need. I think it's the process in which we try to deliver it to the townspeople. And we do this with Public Works on their vehicles, and we do a reserve fund. You know, this is probably perhaps what we should be doing on the warrant article with the reserve fund, putting that money every year, so much every single year, so people can see that it costs money for cruisers, period. And there's no question we need to get them the cruises, but we need to start looking and being proactive about it.
My only concern is that if you put it in a warrant article for this year, are we talking for one cruiser or for
Yeah.
two cruisers?
One.
So we have two coming.
Yeah.
That's done.
Sure.
Yeah.
We hope, somewhere.
Somewhere.
They're encumbered.
Someday.
They're on a ship somewhere off of the coast of California.
Fairfield has.
Yeah.
But I'm just concerned, I guess we need the two. The third one, if it doesn't pass next year, it's not critical, because there is a chance that they could vote that down if it's a warrant article and they say, okay, we gotta wait till next year, because you're getting two, in a sense, in 1 year, we could get 3 brand new vehicles, which, in 3 years, we're gonna need 3 new, brand new vehicles again? I mean,
That's happened.
no, I know it's happened, but it wasn't pleasant.
Isn't,
No, because they all broke down at the same time.
Well, that's gonna happen.
but and I think Pat, I think Pat had mentioned that now as we go forward, we would be looking at a warrant article a year. And I think being able to explain it starting this year, that just in order to keep the fleet where it needs to be in a very high use department, a department that's got to cover a lot of ground. I think being able to explain to the public that this is the plan going forward. And from my experience, short amount of experience, that people like hearing about the plan going forward, that we've thought planfully about it. And so I agree too. I think it should go to a warrant article. And I think we need to just be prepared to explain what the need is, because as you all know, there'll be people who are like, why 3? Well, 2 we had already been approved. Now this is the one that would keep us up to date, so to speak. Yeah, so to speak, that we now want to do what we would now want to go forward with the plan of 1 a year, so that we're keeping an up-to-date fleet. And that fell, and I think being honest is that it fell by the wayside for a little bit because of the new building, et cetera. That's why it wasn't, you hadn't seen it there for the past few years.
The other thing too is we made payments on the other one too. We were making payments on it. If you put it aside in a warrant article and do a reserve and be proactive about it and say, this is the full cost of it, and word it correctly that we could set aside or offset it by detailed fund money. That not being the known, we don't know the exact amount, but we could project something that it could be offset by detailed fund money. It would make it a little bit easier, but the warrant article would need to support the full fund of a cruiser.
Right, it would say raise and appropriate the amount of 61,000,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and to be paid from, and then specify how that, how much would come out of the detail fund. And in this case, we could use the figure of 16,000 and, the 45,000 raised through taxation. So it's always difficult to project the detail activity, but we always have activity. And I've got now 13 years of history on the detail fund. And even looking at 25% less than the very lowest year, 16,000 is still underneath that. So I feel pretty confident that, sometimes that's not a good thing to feel, but if we would use what we have available. And it can be worded in such a way, I'm sure we can work that out when we do the warrant articles. So by doing that, if you do make that change and reduce that line to $2,000, back to $2,000, because I do think you should leave some money in there for equipment purchases that are other than the cruiser. That changes the overall budget from a 5.4% increase to a 4.5% increase. So a little better reduction than what I thought.
What would that leave us for a total department request for budget?
For the police department, it would be.
No, for overall.
Oh, overall?
Yeah.
For the operating budget?
Operating budget.
5,585,586.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget of 5,585,586, which does not include the cruiser, which we're going to go after a warrant article for the current budget draft, for the current operating budget 2022.
The motion on the floor is her second. Hearing none, the motion fails. Was your idea to approve the whole budget and not go through it?
Well, we've gone through it several times, so Tim just explained the couple of things that changed, which justified my opinion to me. So we've gone through it several different times.
John?
I'm good with that, Pat. So the things, I think we should go over the outside agencies. There's some, I think that, you might want to look at a little closer.
Yep.
But I'd be good for everything except for the, we subtracted the 138, 155, and then went into those individually.
Do you want to?
How would we do, or every,
Well, what you could do is if you want to go through the outside agencies just one by one and either go through that and then I can tally that up. And if all the other budgets are to your liking, with the exception of the
Outside
vehicle
agencies.
maintenance or the vehicle
Yeah.
purchase, then I can give you a new total instantly.
Well, we've not voted on any of the outside agencies, correct?
no,
You haven't voted on anything to date.
So, I mean, I can start out, we're gonna go two at a time here. We're gonna start with Park Cemetery and Lakes Region Planning. Park Cemetery for $6,000 and Lakes Region Planning for $3,823. We'll make that motion.
Second,
Motion and a second. Discussion? Lakes Region, that's a contract, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Any other discussion? All those in favor of lines 800 and line 840?
Aye.
800 and 840, right?
Was there any other discussion? Sorry. No. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None? Motion passes.
I would like to make a motion for line 890, Lakes Region Mental Health. Line 930, New Beginnings. Line 940, Future in Sight. And line 950, CASA, for zero amount.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Which lines were those, Pat?
Lakes Region Mental Health, New Beginnings, Future in Sight,
890.
and CASA.
What's future? Oh, this is New Hampshire.
New Hampshire
Yes.
Association for the Blind.
Okay. I didn't read the parentheses. All right.
Make a motion that we approve 933, the summer concert for 2000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None? Motion passes.
All right. One near and dear to my heart, only one. I will make a motion to fund the Tilton Events Committee for $2,500. Oh, they changed it, right? Is that a 1,500 or is it 2,500?
So that's up in culture and recreation. No, it's $1,500
Oh,
more than
that's
last
part
year.
of the budget, it's not us?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
you're just looking at that section, outside
right,
agencies
so-
and below.
make a motion that we fund youth assistance for $46,105.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Motion passes.
Make a motion that we fund community action for $12,000.
Motion to fund it. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Discussion.
Why did the budget committee vote to cut that?
It was significantly out of line with the percentage that other communities were contributing to CAP. So we were contributing significant amount more. And it was very, very far out of line with what the other communities were contributing in terms of median or mean percentage.
Was it because of the request, or was it because of the other communities just didn't give that much, give the amount requested?
They were not giving the amount requested, and when we did the math, I think the average was they were giving about 2.9% of what they were receiving. And so we adjusted down to that.
Good.
John?
I understand a lot of numbers. I think it was maybe about 5 years ago, we cut it back by, I think it was about $9,000. They figured out their costs. We're in a unique situation in Tilton. We don't have the same demographics as some of the other towns. And one of the things that, and I see it in my line of work, is there's a lot of housing projects for elderly as well as Section 8 housing that are run by management companies in the other communities. The benefits of that is the management companies work as a liaison to make sure that they do stay in their housing and they get their proper checks and all their funds and sort of watch over them, which is a lot of what the community action program is doing for a lot of our citizens in town here. One of the big things that we have in town is we not having that type of housing, and also the, make sure Gail can hear this. Having to go out to the homes and kind of check on people, and our Meals on Wheels is a very important part of that, where they go out and see the seniors as well as people with disabilities. We also have the senior center that provides a lot of meals there as a center for that. And I believe Pat can weigh in on this, she knows more of that, but the CAP provides a manager or a operator for that and pays that. So we may be paying a different percentage, but we don't have that backup that a lot of the other communities do. And without that, and if CAP can't provide that, it ends up going more to the welfare and increasing that budget. That's my fear. But just based on that, we realigned it, and our needs per capita are a little higher. That's my concern.
Thank you, John.
Right.
Pat?
So this is something that's very, very near and dear to me, as you know. The seniors have been the forgotten people in our town for years and years and years. It's not about what the other town does or how they do it and what's on paper, or what the percentage is and what the default percentage is. It's about who gets the care. It's about the networking. It's about what's done. When other towns don't pay their fair share, it's the seniors that end up suffering. They closed the Belmont Senior Center last year. They cut the hours down on the Laconia Senior Center. And it's the seniors that pay that price. And if for, the difference between $12,000 and $8,300 is a few $1,000s. If a few $1,000s makes that difference in the town of Tilton, and that's what you want to do for our seniors, then so be it. But the networking is invaluable. It's not just a meal. It's not just going out to give them a Meals on Wheel. It's about, are they okay? Do they need anything else? What's going on with them? Do they have health issues? Do you find them flat on the floor? Do they need a 911 call? Because that is sometimes the only people that ever come to their home is Meals on Wheels. So can we put a price tag on that? That's what's so important in the town of Tilton. Can you put a price tag on that? Last night I had the opportunity of driving the bus to the music. I listened to the people that got on the bus. I listened to their stories, and I found out that there was one person there that needed assistance, and I immediately today got in touch with Heather and Cap to see who could help. Now, if Cap wasn't available to help, where would I go? Welfare. So it's not about the numbers here. It's not about percentage. It's about caring for our seniors. And I could go and I could say, okay, well, we're going to spend $69,000 on children, and then we're going to spend, we just voted $46,000 for a court diversion program on children, but we can't spend $12,000 on community action program who provides Meals on Wheels, who provides fuel assistance, utilities, staffing for those, which now they're having to utilize their staffing to target fuel assistance and utilities and take them off, take them off the fuel assistance and staffing to deliver to Meals on Wheels. Because of the COVID situation, we don't have people delivering to Meals on Wheels. And that's really important. They give us 20 hours a week for a program director. And with this shortage to the town of Tilton, because we already have senior centers around us that are closed, that shortage of a program direct, let me rephrase that, not program director, but there will be programs cut out. So the next will be a program director. So the question was asked, can we survive on $8,300? The answer from CAP is we can survive. And the answer is survive in the town of Tilton with $8,300. And we'll try to do the best we can, but the people will be at a disadvantage. Now, is it worth a difference of $3,700 to our seniors, when if you're looking at numbers and percentages, look at the difference in percentages between the Pines and Youth Assistance to the seniors and what we do in the town of Tilton. The senior center is run by fundraisers. We try our best to keep those doors open at a very, very, very low cost to the taxpayers. And I beg of you to put that money back into the budget, and I will fight and fight and fight at town meeting for this to be put back in. Our seniors should not suffer. It's the networking that's so vitally important to this. VNA comes, CAP and VNA, they have foot clinics, they have blue clinics, they have all kinds of clinics that they come to physically come to the senior center and have signups physically there so that they don't have to go to their homes and do that. It's invaluable to them. Enough said.
Joe,
What she said.
question? I don't know who has the answer to that. My question. Meals on Wheels was mentioned quite frequently. Meals on Wheels was mentioned quite frequently. Is that only servicing residents of the town of Tilton, or are they bringing meals from the Tilton Senior Center to seniors in Samberton and Northfield and Belmont and other towns?
The numbers stay in Tilton. The numbers that they gave you for Tilton are for Tilton. The numbers that they bring, the meals that they bring to the residents in town are the numbers of Meals on Wheels. They do have a program in which they bring meals from CAP and provide them at the senior center. Those are the meals. CAP brings the meals to the senior center.
So, but those meals are being distributed from the Tilton Senior Center.
Are under the Meals on Wheels
So they
program.
are going to other towns.
They're counted as Tilton.
Okay.
Right. But
But they're
have-
counted as Tilton, but they're going to other towns. So it's
No,
not a true number. It's not saying, let's just say the number was 50. It's not 50 Tilton residents that are benefiting. It could be, 25 Tilton residents, 5 Samberton, 5.
At the senior center, there's no way, you're absolutely right. At the senior center, yes, but they deliver Meals on Wheels delivering program is separate from the senior center.
Okay.
Okay, and they also deliver Meals on Wheels separately in Semerton and separately in Belmont and separately in Northfield. Does that make that?
Yeah,
They also
Yep.
deliver the Trip Center in Franklin, and that's a separate number.
any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for $12,000, right? That was your number,
Yes.
$12,000 for the selectmen's portion of the budget on line 910. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes. Someone didn't like that. All right. That was only one line item for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
910.
So what's left, Franklin?
We have Franklin visiting nurses.
Pines Community.
Oh, I thought we just did that. Make a
No.
motion that we accept $69,750 for the Pines Community Center.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next one,
Franklin visiting.
Franklin
nurses.
versus nurses. I'll make a motion that we approve Franklin visiting nurses at $6,000.
Second?
Motion is second. Discussion?
I'd like to see more information on the Franklin visiting nurses. I think 12,000 is, I'm okay with going a little lower. I'm not okay to go way low, cutting it in half. I'd like to see the data that goes along with that. And maybe perhaps have them in. Because I think that 6,000 is really gonna cut them. I don't have a problem going like 10,000 or 9,000, but I wouldn't go 6,000. They just don't cater to, they go to everyone.
They go-
That's your home services.
Would it be possible to have them in?
That would be a Jeannie. Jeannie, are you able to arrange to have Franklin visiting nurses come in?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay,
We can make a motion to table it until,
I can withdraw my
Mhm.
motion, or Joe would have to withdraw a second.
I withdraw.
And I'll withdraw my motion, and we'll have them whenever you can get them in, Jeannie. Probably our,
I can try to get them to come to the January meeting
okay,
in January, what is that, 6th?
That's great. Yeah.
all right,
Thank you, Jeannie.
thanks, Jeannie. Anything else we need to go over on that section?
Well, Jeannie, did you want to discuss animal control at this point? That's the last remaining line other than Franklin visiting nurses in the outside agency.
Yeah, did they want to talk about that now? Is that what you're asking?
Well, it's the last remaining line in that section that hasn't been discussed, and I thought
Okay.
now might be an appropriate time.
So, you can feel free to jump in anywhere if I missed something. So the board, you recall, asked me to go out and look at other bidders for the the contract for animal control. And so I asked Gail to do it for me, and she did a great job. She looked at, I can't find the information in front of me anywhere. Oh, here it is. All right. So she looked at, can you all hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay, so she looked at Franklin Animal Shelter, bird shelter kennels, and domestic dog training / Moonlight. And she came back, Tim's looked at it, I've looked at it, and the recommendation is to go with the Franklin Animal Shelter. I did talk to the folks at Bird Shelter Kennel today to see if they would renegotiate a lower price, because they've been charging us $5,500 for the last three years since I've been here, and probably longer. And the utilization is very, very low. Gail checked with the police department to see how they were using. Birchill used very infrequently. Not enough. I think maybe 2 or 3 times a year to be spending that kind of money. So Gail was able to negotiate with a Franklin Animal Shelter to do it on a per
use.
yeah, per use basis. And as I started to say, I did talk to Birchill today, and I asked him, I said, we'd like to stay with you. We have history with you, but you really need to lower your price, because you're charging us $5,500, and we're only using you maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And he just refused to do any negotiation. He said that he keeps his place open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and it just doesn't make sense for him to lower his price. So at this point, there was a draft contract. It's actually called Granite State Animal League that we have. I had asked Gail to see about getting a final, if you were good with it, to sign it. You should have that draft in front of you if you want to take a look at it.
I don't think I saw it.
You didn't.
I don't,
Well, the contract ends with Birch Hill at the end of this month. You will be meeting again on the 20th, I believe. So if you haven't seen it, we can get it to you, and you can look at it and make that decision on the 20th, if that's what you'd like to do.
I don't see the, do you see it? I
No.
don't see it in our
I don't see a
packet.
draft.
I don't see a draft.
It's not there?
No,
Tim?
Well,
Okay.
I think we'll probably have the contract tomorrow that can be sent out for review, so you can look at it over the
Okay.
weekend.
Yeah. And Gail, I had asked Gail, there's a draft, and I said I'd like to have the draft for the board to look at it, but as backup, have the final ready to go in case you were interested in it. She sent me an email around 4:30 and said she still hadn't heard back from Franklin, so it's not there. But I just wanted to go over really quickly. Franklin, they don't have just like, and I asked her to ask Franklin if they were happy with the services, and they were. She did talk to our PD to make sure that they were comfortable moving and didn't have any issues, and they were. So she looked at Franklin, Sanderson, Northfield, Tilton, Moonlight Kennels, Lakeside Animal Hospital, and Belknap County Animal Control Services. So she really did her homework on this.
so it would be a move over to Franklin?
Well, yes, I mean, if one of our officers picks up a dog, it
Yeah.
goes over to Franklin, right?
Okay, so it's a per use as well? I'm not-
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, it's a per use, yep. And I think it's $100
It is.
It's $100 per use, which, you know, if you think about it, if we even if we use them only 5 times, which is double of what we've used, I think, in the last year. And I had asked Birchill to give us an average of what we've used in the last 3 years, and they weren't able to give it to us, but in talking with our own police department, they said maybe 2 or 3 times. So even if we used it 5 times, that's, you know, $500 versus $5,000, $5,500.
Okay,
That makes sense.
that sounds great.
So we actually budgeted, we brought it down to 3,000
Mhm.
because there have been times when there've been as many as a dozen or more during the year. So, you know, not knowing what the experience is going to be yet, we're looking to reduce the line, but not, I think that'd be cutting it a little too close if we were in the $500 or $1,000 range. So that was the logic behind reducing it 2,500 down to 3,000. So once we have an experience with the agency, we'll know a lot more next year what to expect.
So would it be appropriate to motion, change it to 3,000? We could always amend that. You know, contract.
Yeah, it's
To
just a
give us the
matter,
numbers.
it's the number, it's not who we're contracting with.
Right, so the department request is actually 3,000. That was one of the changes from the last budget. So, so that would be appropriate if you wanted to vote on that budget amount for that line.
It's just to give us a bookmark there, and then we can always amend it at next meeting or something.
Right.
Do we need to make a motion to go with Franklin,
Do that on.
or is that another time?
Or we can do that,
Skip
we
that.
can do that once we read the contract.
Okay.
The amount's not gonna change.
Yep, yep.
If the amount was iffy and gonna change, we could say, no, table it, wait till Monday or whatever. But it's not. It's a matter of reading the specifics and process.
So I'll make that motion to change, to approve line 925 animal control to $3,000.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of animal control for $3,000 signify, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes.
And I'd just like to say really quickly, I appreciate Gail and Tim in the last day or so helping me with this, because I haven't been on the greatest of.
That was all Gail. All Gail. She did an outstanding
Yeah.
job on this and the research.
She
And
did a great job.
she spent a lot of time on it.
Who else?
Thank you,
Who
Gail.
else did Gail?
Thank you.
Um,
Mr.
So do we want to approve the budget with the exception of the Franklin B&A?
I would almost recommend you
Wait,
no, that maybe if you came up with a placeholder that was an agreement with all of you prior to bringing in Franklin B&A, that then you would have a bottom line, but I can give you the bottom line as you voted now.
without Franklin B&A.
Right, but it would just be that one omission.
Okay, what's that?
So just add the animal control in there. All right. So the bottom line is now 5,442,908, looks like. And what I'll do is through the end of the meeting, I'll just make sure that that's the correct number. But that represents an increase of $98,802 over the prior year budget, or a 1.8% increase.
I have a question. Before we went into that, our budget was 5.585 million, and now it's 5.442 million, and we added a bunch of stuff.
It was, you took out, actually, you approved taking out.
Okay.
So you reduced the outside agencies.
Oh, that's right. The outside agency was in that number.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so
I was
the-
looking on the right column.
The outside agencies is now 142,678. plus the 45,000. So you reduced 20,647 there. You reduced, yeah, it does seem, that does seem
Or
like a
you
low number.
reduced 45,000 on the,
I'm gonna have to double check that, but, right, so it should be more like about an $80,000 decrease for some reason.
or you took out the car, the cruiser, right?
Yes,
Okay, and then you took out,
so I'll give it, I will give you a number here in just a minute. Let me double
Massage
check
those
that
numbers,
as you
Tim,
go
and
into
see what
your,
happens.
as you go into your non-public, or whatever you have left after I'm not.
selectmen's report.
So while you're doing your selectmen reports, I can just make sure to give you that final number so that you can vote on it. I did, if it's appropriate, I'd like to just go through the remainder of my
Yeah, go ahead.
report. So the encumbrances, so we attached to my report, you'll see the encumbrance for the planned New Hampshire charrette, the $6,000 for economic development. And then also the Riverfront Park Pavilion roof replacement of $17,772. There's a quote in there. By encumbering these funds, it does not commit us to using that particular vendor, but it represents the work that needs to be done. And that we could utilize that vendor for that amount. So what was withdrawn were was the land use plotter scanner. And then also we discussed the handheld radios. And in looking at the radios, back in 2012, we received 12 Motorola handheld radios through a grant, which there was no cost at all to the town. It was worth about $25,000 at the time. And that was through a federal grant that was made available through the state, throughout the state. The last time we spent money in the police department outside of the grant, we also, I did a grant for that base station back in 2017. But prior to that, when we actually paid money for handhelds was in 2007. And we don't have those handhelds any longer. So we're looking at going on almost 10 years on the existing handhelds. And it's, we can use the remainder of that local equipment grant, or I should say Jeannie is confirming that we can use the remainder of that local equipment grant that the board approved the fire district using a portion of. The cost of the Motorola's are about $3,700 a piece for the ones that the police department would like. And those are the higher wattage handhelds. They're the 6,000 series. There's a 4,000 series. It's about $1,200 less per handheld. And ideally, they would like to purchase 14. The local equipment grant won't support that amount. They can do with as few as 10. So that would still be $37,000, and just right, we're right at the cusp of the max of that local equipment grant at that point. So we'd be looking to use probably some ARPA funds to augment whatever the final decision is on that. But the important part of this is that there is no encumbrance being done for these handhelds, that the balance of the police department's surplus, if you will go straight to the fund balance, and that it would be available for a reduction of tax rate at the end of next year. So I did just want to bring that to your attention. So the intention is to continue on to pursue the acquiring of new handheld units for the police department, but doing it through grants and or ARPA funds. So that explains that. And then I have two other issues that I'm pretty sure Selectman Constantino is going to want to be a part of, but both of them have to do with some procedural issues that we're dealing with. But the first item is regarding what I mentioned earlier in the budget, about the per ton increase for wind waste, which is formerly Wheelabrator. So with our commercial haulers right now, we charge them $72 a ton, which represents the difference. The difference of that is our administrative cost of processing the invoices, collecting the the money and so forth, and basically a small administrative fee for the administering the program. Currently, our administrative fee is just over 1%. It's like 1.02%. If you were to calculate the difference between $72 and $71.14. I'm making a recommendation that with the new rate of $74.20, that we increase the fee per ton to the haulers to $75, which represents just under 1% for the administrative fees at 0.98. So it's roughly the same amount of money. And I would like the board to act on this tonight, because we really need to send letters out to the haulers indicating the increase in price so that they can notify their customers, because it's effective February 1st from wind waste. So, so in any event, and I do have a motion for you further on that pertains to that. And in conjunction with the hauler fees, there is an issue with the licensing and the application fee for this as well. So when we're looking at the overall fees of this program, and when we're looking at our sanitation costs, in the commercial program, we have not changed our application or licensing fee for as long as I've been here for this program. So it also doesn't seem to hold that we need to have a separate application fee from the licensing fee. And one of the problems that we've had year in and year out is with the timing of this. The licensing goes from November 1st through October 31st of each year. However, the person that administers this in the Selectmen's office has to chase down the haulers each year and hound them to get their new application or the renewal applications in, because they're supposed to be providing us with a list of customers so that we know that when they're going down to Wheelabrator, the tonnage that they're taking is coming from the town of Tilton, and they have to adhere to our flow control policy. So it's an important aspect, but there's really no teeth if somebody doesn't submit their renewal on time. So what we're recommending is to increase and combine the application and license fee and go from $125, what it has been for probably 12 or more years, up to $200. And if it's not paid, then that's if it's paid by October 31st of the year, meaning that they've renewed prior to the start of the new contract period. If it goes into the new contract period, then they would have to pay $400 for their renewal. So it's intended to provide a financial incentive for them to get their renewal in early, or at least on time, so that it doesn't waste the time of your staff chasing haulers for this information. They all have it. They all know it has to be done every year. So that's the recommendation. And if you were in agreement with both the change in the fee per ton as well as the application and licensing fee that I just described, of course that could be changed if you don't feel that's appropriate. But the last aspect of that is also looking at the process itself. And the process has been that the Board of Selectmen sign these licenses for the haulers each year. But in looking at what comes before the board for signature and what doesn't, it really strikes us that there isn't any particular need for the Board of Selectmen to sign these. The town administrator or designee of the town administrator could do so once all the application materials are in, and it can be reported to the board. So, so that is the recommendation for both the increase in tonnage cost and then the hauler licensing and application.
No, yeah. So I move that we increase the tipping fee charged to commercial haulers to $75 per ton, effective February 1st, 2022. And furthermore, that we increase the licensing based upon the finance director's recommendations of $200 for new licenses and renewals and $400 for late renewals. And furthermore, to designate the town administrator or her designee to sign, monitor, and periodically report the status of the hauler licensing to the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Question,
Go ahead.
her designate,
Their designee.
well, we've always signed them, and now we're designating the town administrator to be able to sign. Who else would sign it?
It would be the
Would
town
be Gail.
administrator.
Town administrator or his or her designee.
If the town administrator weren't available.
Okay.
But it should read his or her, because in the event that this is 10 years from now and our current town administrator is retired, that it should read.
There's an echo in here.
Actually, you could just strike the word her, because it would read just fine, town administrator or designee to sign.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's better, yep. John's gonna see.
John?
I guess I have a couple concerns. I'm looking at the, Scott pointed out, the one that we're given to sign that, I think everybody signed here. Scott pointed out for me, the list of customers
For Pinard.
for Bernard, none of them are our customers. So all these people will be dumping it on our bill.
The Laconia list.
What do you
Literally
mean?
the list of pickups that they have is all Laconia.
Yeah,
So I
all
think
those,
that, my guess is they put the wrong list.
I would,
That's gotta be
I would
wrong.
expect that that's.
Yeah.
That they sent the wrong list.
Okay.
I'm not saying
Laconia
that
makes
myself.
artists.
Can we hold that until we get an updated list?
It's all Laconia. Both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll see. Yeah.
I didn't catch that. I looked at it too, and I didn't catch it.
Yeah,
Good
I'm not.
catch.
Do
I'm
you
not
understand
seeing
what we're saying, Jeannie?
I'm having a really hard time.
So on the hawkers and peddlers,
No, it's on.
No, it's the
I
haulers.
mean, the haulers that's in there now to be signed by the selectmen has the wrong list of customers on it. It has a Laconia list of customers for Pinard,
The Pinard application. Yep.
for the Pinard application. Just needs to have the right customer base for Tilton.
you know, I myself prefer to look at keep an eye on things that go in town and how things are going, who's hauling what, stuff I get asked. And I'm good for everything in the motion, except I don't think it's a big deal for us to pass these around, another set of eyes looking at it.
Pass what around now, John?
The application.
The applications, you know, we sign the haulers licenses, we sign the peddlers licenses. You know, I know we get audited every year, and we have to sign the thing that we, as selectmen, where we oversee and that there's checks and balances in the system for that. And I think that's taking that out, and we have to swear that we have those and explain what they are. And one of them that we put on there is that it's overseen by selectmen.
But doesn't it say periodically report the status of the hauler's licensing to the Board of Selectmen? Wouldn't that,
I'm just,
no, I'm trying to explain what, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. The motion it says that they still need to report to the Board of Selectmen the status. So what you're saying is you'd like to have the actual application each time that they present it, so that we could look it over and say, oh, this is not right, or
we've
this
had
is
problems
right,
with
or,
other haulers in the past, I think you know, what I'm talking about. We had a couple other haulers that had issues.
Any other discussion?
I amend that to remove, and furthermore, from there on, designate town administrator or designate sign monitor. I'll make that motion.
Now, how are we changing this?
In other words, we wouldn't be signing it. It would be the town administrator that would be approving the,
According to this,
yes, according to the motion.
I'm just thinking the same way we do
John wants to
Remain as we
leave
do,
the way,
it. We put it in the folder and we review
like
it.
the one that's in.
Increase the fees, but keep the,
John
So-
All
wants
the fees would be the same, increase.
John wants
Yeah.
to increase the fees in the new license and renewal fine for late renewals, but not designate the town administrator or their designate.
okay, I get it.
so this is, so there was a motion, was there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Motion passes.
The amendment passed.
The amendment passes, sorry, amendment passes. All right. So now to do
Now it,
the,
the,
yeah,
We're
so
voting
now,
on the original motion.
now the original, it's amended motion.
no, it's amended motion.
So now, make a motion, the motion is, I move that we increase the tipping fee charged to commercial haulers to $75 per ton effective February 1st, 2022. And furthermore, that we increase the licensing based upon the finance director's recommendations of $200 for new licenses and renewals and $400 for late renewals. Is there a second?
Well, that's the amended
It's already been
motion.
That's the amended motion.
Yeah.
You don't need to second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That will be a big help in terms of administering the process. The last item is the hawkers and peddlers, and this was something that had come up also. It was not changing any of the program, but because of the timing, we ran into several times this last year when all the information was in just after a selectmen's meeting, and yet the hawker and peddler had to wait until the next meeting in order to be official to, sell their wares. So, so in any event, this was similar to the last item, and it was just designating the town administrator or designee. And, so that's really what that was, so it could be expedited once all the information was in, and then also to notify the Board of Selectmen, because we know that you do, run across people and you see and notice when there's someone out there selling something. So this way you get a notification each time there was a new hawker and peddler and what the activities were to be, the dates that they're going to be there and what they're selling and that sort of thing. So that, so again, there is a sample motion if you're in agreement with that, but that was one of the other items, kind of along the same lines.
Mr. Chair, I move that we designate the town administrator or her designee in the absence to sign the hawker and peddler's license and remove the requirement for the Board of Selectmen to sign them. And furthermore, to require the town administrator or her designee to provide notification to the Board of Selectmen where there is a newly authorized hawker and peddler along with the details of their intended activities in town.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
Once again, we need to remove her.
Right. Okay.
I was reading that and thinking,
This came up not too long ago, in the situation up at, I believe Tango when Gail was actually out. And we were not having a meeting. And I took the information and I gotta tell you, it was mind-boggling, the amount of information that needed, and I thought I had everything and I didn't. I think that this is important. She's done it for years and years and years, and as it's streamlined, absolutely streamlined. So I'm 150% behind that one.
we have to restate it without the hers in there.
I don't think so.
No, we can just say that, take town administrator
Takes-
or designee to provide notification to the board of selectmen when there's a newly authorized hawker and peddler. Just take her out.
Any other discussion?
So when it comes to hawkers and peddlers, what do we allow, what we don't allow? What are, we've seen a lot of different things come through, whether it's is it actually an arts and crafts? Should they have one? Should they be paying the lease from, a store if they're hawking and peddling out of a store temporarily? There's a lot of those gray areas with this that, and I think, we regularly, usually in the summertime now, we usually meet every week or at least every 2 weeks. 7 to 14 days ahead of time to apply for something is appropriate. And again, it's, some of the things that we've had issues with a lot. I'd like to retain that responsibility.
When have we had an issue though? Of what, the only time that I can ever remember, correct me if I'm wrong, that we've ever had an issue about what should have a hawkers and peddlers and what should not is surrounding the farmer's market. And that clearly is agricultural and under the umbrella of agricultural. So I think we haven't had an issue.
We had, I think, one where they were going to be renting space inside a commercial storefront and then subletting to something. Perhaps maybe we need to actually go and tighten up and clarify our permits and what they are. Might be even more appropriate.
I do think that if the town administrator came across something that was out of the guidelines by what's already been approved, I would imagine, Jeannie, would you not bring that forward to the board to discuss that? Jeannie?
What?
Jeannie, so the question.
I'm having a really hard time understanding what's going on.
Okay, so we're discussing the hawker and peddler and the approval process. And the question was brought up that because there are sometimes very strange requests made, or out of the ordinary requests, that the board, there was some discussion that, shouldn't they retain the review and approval of that. And I was just commenting that I thought that if you ran across an application that was outside of the the guidelines of what has already, or the practice of what's already been approved in the past, that you would likely bring that to the Board of Selectmen to discuss. Would you not?
Absolutely, anything that was not within the ordinary realm of hawkers and peddlers would come before the board.
Thanks, Jeannie. Scott?
So it would be my desire, and maybe I'm sure that the rest of the board, that knowing ahead of time when these folks are going to be on premise, wherever they're going to be, would be great, because there are times when I drive by certain sites and I'm wondering if they'd file. I mean, if they have what they're supposed to have. So just however we do this going forward, and I do think that this is a far more efficient way, that just we have a knowledge ahead of the time when they're going to appear on whatever site it is that we're notified of.
Yeah.
I think this
Yeah,
is gonna be,
absolutely.
right, to me, I think it's gonna be, because she'll, whether she emails us all or, you know, a copy and says, hey, this, they filed, this is good, this, whatever, we all know, and we get a million calls why chicken fillet or whatever, that's just an example, but, you know, let's say the mum place is, they're on
Mums and trees.
point, they've got it.
Mhm.
Anyway,
And trees.
Joe?
I got a question.
Questions been called? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I do have the total for you for the operating budget, less the, with the changes that you've made to the outside agencies, removing the portion out of the police budget that was allocated for the cruiser purchase. And with the one exception being that there is no amount of money right now budgeted for Franklin VNA, because that will be considered at a later date. So the total right now is $5,564,939. It's a $220,833 increase, or a 4.1% increase.
I so move that we approve $5,564,939, a 4.1% increase in the 2022 operating budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Consideration of the Franklin DNA at a later time.
What she just said? Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None? Motion passes.
Okay, that's all I have. I assume there's no, that the consensus is that you're fine with the encumbrances for the charrette and the Riverfront Park roof.
Yes, fine.
Those are the only two.
I just had a question on our recycling. I think that's been right. I mean, not be right, but, you know, up the right amount, because we're going to be paying the higher tonnage.
Right, yeah, in fact, I went through, and some of what I had to refine was that the increase goes into effect in February. So I had to use the old rate for January, and I had to go back and look at our history of January and so I brought it right down to the month. Of course, you know, January 22 could be totally different than the, you know, 19, 20, and 21 Januaries, but you know, it's as, you know, any budget is a plan. It's not, you know, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be off somewhere, but I do feel as though it is very accurate in that sense. So,
You know what it was offhand? Or, I mean, we don't even have to reply tonight. But the difference that in the recycling that will be paying the cost over the year.
yeah, I can tell you exactly what we budgeted. So we'll be paying the actual amount per ton, but it ranged from $50 last year. This is according to Bernard. Their range went from about, think actually the low end was $43 up to $150 per ton during last year.
I was just good with the total amount.
So 350 ton is what we used originally, and I brought that down a little bit because our recycling has been off a little bit. And we're looking at an average of $100 per ton for the recycling. So more than likely, when we discuss warrant articles, we're going to have a warrant article recommendation for sanitation for the board to discuss.
Because that's going to be a huge increase in cost.
It is.
Because now we're paying that
Well,
really high
and
price for the recycle.
the bad news, because there is no good news with sanitation, and I don't want to steal any thunder from Joe, but Joe's projections based on what the future contract is looking like is even more dire in terms of the per tonnage cost. So, I mean, it is exponentially higher than this increase that we're looking at now by a factor many, many times. So something is going to have to be done prior to 2023, as far as I'm concerned.
See, they don't know the information that I'm about to give them.
Right, and
So you're
I'm trying
talking in
not-
riddles.
I know, I'm trying not to steal, your report, so
Oh,
in any
you
case.
going to tell us tonight, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Joe
It's-
can't
it's
wait.
I don't know if I
gloomy,
want to
Joe.
hear it.
It's gloomy, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
I've been
weather
thinking
was
about
when
it.
I came in.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Tim?
No, that's it, thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving right on, Selectmen reports, John Scanlon.
Not too much going on. I guess we had a couple accidents out there. But Christmas party, Christmas parade was great. We all had a good time in the back of the truck there. And Kevin and the crew decorated it up. It's good to see all the people out there with Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus and all the kids. And the thing was decorated really nice. Riding into town on the parade, I want to thank Jeannie and all the crew that helped with decorating the town. I saw a beautiful tree down by Timetable Mabel, and the lights and all that really looks nice. Thanks.
It does. Is that it? Short, sweet, all right. Pat Constantino.
I met with the Parks Commission on Monday evening. The parade was obviously a success, as John said. They went over their budget. They had a small discussion on meeting with the selectmen. They were very amenable to our discussion on taking over the park buildings and grounds. They cannot meet, obviously, they couldn't meet tonight, but they're looking forward to meeting in January, and I think Jeannie's already set that date. Other than that, there was a small discussion on the Northfield and Surratt Park, which I didn't quite understand. It was on pickup and cleanup and what was being charged. There is a third Gift of Life bus trip from an anonymous donor on the 27th. We've set a date for that on the 27th of December. And I'll be the bus driver. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I have two items in non-public. One is personnel, and the other is that which discussed in public would adversely affect the reputation. Very short, really, really short items.
All right,
That's it.
all right. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks.
Scott Ruggles.
So very, very brief report from last night's budget committee meeting. Budget committee approved the town clerk, tax collector, budget, finance budget, IT, and health and welfare last evening. So And we had a good conversation with Mr. Hardy from Parks as well on his budget. That's all.
All right, thanks, Scott. Gloomy Joe Adjustment.
Yeah. Well, firstly, we had a discussion at our last meeting about the potential for training our public works employees in order that they could get CDL licenses, the A version of the license. And we discovered that we no longer have any CDL A licenses within the department. And after considering that, it seems as though if we were going to invest, and I believe the amount was $10,000 in the training, that I don't know some of the other employees in Public Works. So far, they've all been fine individuals, but I think that in 5 years, 6 years, Kevin is the one that will still be for a fact, for sure. That's my gut feeling. He's doing a great job in my estimation, and I think he likes it here. And I would rather see the Director of Public Works hold a CDL -A license. And I also don't know as we necessarily have to spend $20,000 in 1 year to get two, as long as we've got one. I mean, it doesn't affect the plowing, it doesn't affect most of the things we do, but sometimes you need that A license for like hauling the excavator. You can't pull the trailer with a CDL B. And so just a little food for thought as we go forward, that maybe Kevin should get a license. And then maybe, maybe you want to get two at once. I mean, I could see where it would be convenient, but having one, I think, is somewhat necessary. So I would like to see Kevin do that. And that's just a seed to be planted. We'll talk about it again, no doubt. I'd like to thank, yes.
I was just I did do a little research on that. That can wait till a later time. The board had asked me to look into some things, which I did. I don't know if you want to hear it now or if you want to, because it sounded like you were going to bring this up at a later time for more discussion.
We're going to have to talk about this again, I'm sure.
Okay, I'll wait then.
Plant the Kevins.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, I'd like to thank Liz Murray for her efforts in fundraising and in which I participated and I lost it in the bag. Tilton Police Department sweatshirt. I'm a sweatshirt.
You want me to stand up and model?
Oh, yeah. Stop.
That'll cost you, me being on the runways. Big
It's gonna cost Liz.
So,
See that? And it's got the thing on the back. Live for your die, it says.
Very nice.
Okay, then. Now,
that's $100. by
these
the way.
things come in threes. Garbage.
Venmo that to you.
In 2015, the tipping fee at the incinerator was $65.31. We had a contract with Wheelabrator, which has become Win Waste in the interim. And it capped the increases at 5%. And most years it wasn't 5%. But it has creeped up this year. They are going up 5%, and it's going to go to $74.20, which is a significant increase, 5% increase. But in the year 2022, our contract with the incinerator runs out. So they've come up with a couple of different proposals. I have the information here. If these are the meeting minutes from the co-op, that meeting that I just went to. The 5-year agreement that Winways proposes, in the first year, 2023, the tipping fee goes up to $90. That's a $16 increase. And then 5% every year until in 2027, it is $105.29 a ton. It's a proposal for a 7-year agreement, potentially. That in 2023, it would be $85 a ton, which is a $15 less increase over the $90 that they, or a $5 decrease over the $90 that they proposed in the 5-year contract. But in 2029, in the 7th year of the contract, we would be obligated to pay $115 a ton for our trash, municipal solid waste. Now, that's an increase of $30 a ton. I don't know what that is in money, but a lot. A lot. So I look for alternatives. Do we sign a contract with the incinerator, knowing that we're signing ourselves up for $115 a ton? Can't we dump our garbage somewhere? Well, as it turns out, not so much. There's one public landfill in the state, and Lebanon, and they don't accept garbage, like random garbage from here and there. The other landfills are privately owned. Casella has one up in Bethlehem. And that is the current place that hauler is bringing it to. And they have a contract with Casella, so they're making their money, but the gate fee is $89 a ton right now. So garbage is going to be a thing. Now, on top of that, landfills are reaching their maximum amounts. They're only permitted for a certain amount of acreage and, tonnage that can be dumped there. There's one permit outstanding for expanding, again, Bethlehem and Casella, but that's being tied up extensively right now in the permitting process because they're like apparently too close to the aquifer or the wellheads, or there's a whole thing, and the environmental protection people and stuff like that. We're running out of place to put our garbage. So knowing full well, even if you paid $89 a ton, or you could, $89 a ton, or get in on the Pinard price if we were to continue with Pinard, they might be able to get it a little bit cheaper, but we're running out of space. If we do bury it in the ground, we still have to transport it. So if it was $89 a ton, we still have to get the garbage from here to Bethlehem. There's nobody like in the neighborhood, of course, that is doing this. So you got the transportation costs.
And that's a big expense.
It is, which means that if we are to decide that we're going to bring our garbage to Bethlehem with Pinard, my guess is real strongly that their proposal for the hauling contract is going to be significantly higher starting in 2023. And rightly so, because their hauling costs would be significantly higher. So 17 miles to the incinerator at these prices, Or we, I mean, rock in a hard place, so what do you do? All right. It's looking like recyclables at $100 a ton, it's gonna be a deal. But I guarantee you, it won't be $100 a ton
How
then.
many tons do we usually generate?
For which? For
For-
solid waste?
And that's
Solid
done.
waste.
So, I mean, you could use 1,500 as an example. I mean, we're a little bit under that, but, projecting out, I'd say that's probably safe in '23. I think we're at,
That's $157,000.
we're at 1280
Ta-da.
1287 right now. I can tell you that the preliminary work I did looking at '23, even if we did away with recycling and negotiated, the contract for collection, because Bernard has told us, and we saw through the bid process, that just collection only is going to cost more if you're not doing recycling. More than if you were, in other words, you're not just going to pay the current solid waste collection contract. They're picking up more, there's more costs for them.
So we need to keep
So-
with recycling.
But what I can tell you is, looking at that $90 a ton increase, even if we cut recycling out of the program entirely, all the savings that we would have by cutting recycling would be made up by the increased cost per ton for solid waste. So even reducing the service, we would not save any money. At least that's the preliminary, but I got to look at what Joe's got it.
So how do the people that go behind and just like dump trucks and pick up people's garbage? I see them all the time in like Guilford. It's personal people. I mean, it's private, or it's not big haulers, it's private people. Where do they bring their stuff?
Gee, you want to jump into that one?
Where do they bring their,
But,
where do they bring their stuff?
well, so like, you see them all the time in like, Guilford and Laconia. You have
Meredith
Private.
does it that way.
Meredith, so you have private private people, private businesses that pick up garbage for residents. Where do they bring that garbage?
Well, I couldn't tell you which specific company you're talking about, private company. Waste Management in Meredith will pick up our garbage and it goes to, Pennacook. So if there's a private, and it depends on, what relationship those private, drivers, pick up people, what relationship they have with which transfer station.
Well, and I think this is one of the things the board's really going to have to consider is what could be done at the transfer station to do more
Right.
recycling there, move the recycling from the curbside to the transfer station. We're not going to see probably the same percentage of recycling, but you still have, a good portion of it done that way. And whatever improvements would have to be made there, but they do have a very efficient operation, and Kevin is incredibly resourceful, as we all know. So I'm sure something could be done there. But at the same time, I think we just have to come to grips with the service level that we've been enjoying isn't sustainable at what the budget's going to be. So somehow, whether it's looking at your ordinances, and what's allowable, or what fits underneath the collection contracts. There are a number of ways to kind of hone it, but it's gonna be expensive. It's our single largest contract now. It's gonna continue to be.
And I think I told you before that in Meredith, we have a transfer station and people take their waste to the transfer station, and anyone who doesn't want to do that hires a private company to pick it up for them.
And where does the private company bring it? To the transfer station?
Private company, which would be Waste Management, at least my experience, they take them, it goes to Pennacook. So it doesn't go to our transfer station, it goes to Pennacook.
My brother lives,
It goes to the incinerator.
my brother lives in Meredith. And
Uh-huh.
he doesn't deal with waste management or anything. There's a guy with a truck.
What's that?
There's a guy with a truck. And he drives around and he collects all the garbage for a fee.
Mhm.
And that garbage has to go somewhere,
Right.
but it's not waste
Yeah, and
management.
I have no idea where that garbage is going. I
That's
can
an
only tell
interesting
you.
question, and I thought it went over your
Yeah.
transfer station because it was generated in the town of Merritt.
Well, that could be. I mean, if the person has a dump sticker, but we've also got scales over there too. They
Yeah.
weigh everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be. It's gotta be.
Yeah. And he may be paying more because he's doing that as a business. I don't know. That's the first I've ever heard of that happening in Maryland.
Really? We'll talk more. I'll give you the name of the guy.
I'm gonna call my DPW guy.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy.
I know. Don't ask. Just
But
pick up, make cash.
No good news about trash. I did stop down and speak with Director Duval and showed him this sheet. And they didn't turn white, but his mouth did drop open. And I said, so it would be incumbent upon Public Works Director to start planning about what does garbage look like in 2023, 4, 5, and so forth. So he already knows about this. There's a full copy of the meeting minutes and what have you that I sent down that way. There's a couple on my sheet, there's a couple of errors, 7420, they had something else for 2022, but when we figured it out again, it was 7420. And
Regardless of whether you have recycling or MSW, it has to go somewhere. So we've been used to, the town has been used to having a delivery service, if you were to pick up. And it curbside. If we say to them in any way, shape or form to say, okay, we need to cut corners because it's going up and up and up and up and up. We say, okay, well, we'll take away recycling or we'll manage MSW somehow to curb it and limit it or however. I mean, there's different options, but no option is a good option because that MSW or that recycling that you've consistently gauged for years now has to go somewhere. Has to go somewhere. I literally have 1.5 buckets of recycling every other week. That recycling has to go somewhere consistently, has to go somewhere, whether it's MSW or somewhere, whether I bring it to the town garage or not. Somewhere along the line, it's not going to stay in my garage until the garage rots. You know what I'm saying? It has to go somewhere. We have to find a place for it. For the residents, anyway.
oh,
Otherwise, they'll be burying it.
and think about it, because it's coming up that we have to enter into, we've already sent back a counter proposal for less money and what have you, but quite frankly, they've got us over a barrel.
Yeah, they're kind of the only game in nearby town.
Well, they certainly have the nearby part of it, for sure. And it's going up this much because they can raise it that much.
So today, I don't know, it was this week, I read an article in the Daily Sun about the city of Laconia is reintroducing glass after a 3-year absence into their recycling, which is something that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And what they do is Casella grinds that glass into a fine powder, sand, and they use it in roads.
Yeah, they've been doing that for years.
But Laconia is actually, because of that, and the price for the glass now is higher, Laconia's put the glass back into the recycling stream where before it had to go in trash. And we've talked about taking recycling, the glass out of our recycling.
Well, but the thing is, we're commingled. So you would, so that would apply if we were doing the transfer station.
Yeah, well,
providing
And separating the
separation,
glass.
Because
That
you
might
have to
be
have
something to look
separation.
into.
Again, that would be part of
Yeah.
Director
All right.
Duval's
That's right.
plan for, and we can sell cardboard. I mean,
Yeah.
the Samberton model and the Meredith model,
Guilford.
they separate the recyclables and there's a market for some of this stuff. Commingle means that they have to sort it on site, and that leads to all sorts of issues. And if you want to go to Eco Maine sometime in Portland and see how that works, I definitely suggest it. I can probably set it up. It's an amazing thing. How they said, you dump it on the floor and they put it in a bin, and they got guys that are like moving the big pieces of cardboard over this way, and it goes and it blows and computers, and that's why you can't put those shopping bags in there, because there's all these wheels on these belts, and those shopping bags, Walmart, Hannaford's, Market Basket, they get caught in the wheel, shut everything down.
Well, also in the Pinard contract, at the very beginning of the Pinard contract, the contamination percent that was allowed per ton is vastly different from what it is now. So at one point in time, you could have a higher percent of,
10%, what's the new contract?
I don't know off the top of my head, I know it's very low, and loads are rejected. And when they're rejected, there's a pretty good cost.
You pay the full tipping fee price for SSW plus a fine. You
Right.
pay extra because they have to transport it again to another place. How lovely.
So we've had it pretty good. I used the word, the wrong word at one point in a budget meeting about how we were spoiled in town with trash and recycling, because, we're paying a lot, but we have the highest level of service. I don't know what else we could offer that wouldn't, aside from picking up the amnesty week at everyone's house, which was done years ago. But twice a year, you can take anything you like. And the rest of the year, you just put it at your road and it just magically disappears. And
Joe, the trash guy goes.
so looking at our costs versus what Meredith probably is having to pay, if you think about the collection cost and all those other items, instead of paying it to a Pinard or similar type of waste company, if that money were going into an investment of making a bona fide transfer station, which can be expensive, but you're moving to the future of where the cost would be at the transfer station. You wouldn't be providing necessarily curbside collection, but you'd be providing all the other aspects that are required, at the transfer station. And then, so maybe that's something, I think that's a little extreme from where we are now. There must be steps to get to a logical place, but anyway, regardless, there really needs to be a warrant article at town meeting so that the board has a direction to go and get pricing for the 23 year.
So there you go. Merry Christmas.
Thanks,
Joel.
Sure,
Thanks,
sure,
Joe.
you bet.
So,
I just want to make one comment. The previous contract, when we looked at it and we hemmed and hawed over it, saying how outrageously expensive this was and how much it was going to cost us in 2021 at the end of the contract, was absurd. We had no idea. We thought we'd be paying way too much in 2021 when it came around. So these numbers of 115, when we get up to 27, I think you said, that very well could be a lot less than what everybody else is paying.
And there you
People
go.
could be up to 130, 150, and this is the way it's always gone. and we
Mhm.
always come out ahead. So there's a lot to this that, you
Agreed.
think it's expensive now,
True.
it's not getting any better, so
Well,
we got to think.
the thing is that this is the same basic contract structure in that they'll go up no more than 5%, but they guarantee that it's gonna be 5%. And right now, that might even be, I mean, everything might go up 6%, 6.5%. But that won't last. It won't last. Inflationary pressures won't last. In the 70s, gasoline doubled, fuel costs doubled in a month, 6 weeks. Went from 35 to 70 cents, which sounds ridiculous now, but, for the good old days. But it crippled the country, and there were gas lines at the gas pumps. And I know most of you guys, well, John, you remember, and Pat, you remember. Come on, you can't be that old. How old were you in 73?
I was 2, but I remember.
Well, there you go.
I was sitting in the back of a Dodge Dart that didn't have any
Gas
air
in your
conditioning.
pedal
for heaven's
car.
sakes. Brutal.
But it leveled out. I mean, it evened out, and it didn't continuously keep going into infinity. So, I don't know. Do we agree to the 5%? What we wanted to do was to actually tie it to the consumer price index. So if inflation went up, the tonnage fee, the tipping fee went up. If inflation went down, it still went up, but it didn't go up 5% or 6%. It might have gone up 2%. You know, so that's part of our rebuttal. But we'll see how that plays out. But if we agree to that and it goes up 7%, who do we start crying then? And that's the end of my depressing report.
Louis Joe.
Joe, can I
Had
just ask
enough
one
of the
question?
Grinch.
Because there are assets that
Oh,
the consolidated waste, the good news,
there is.
is there any capability where even if there's a certain excessive per ton cost, that rather than receiving, say, a lump sum, could the, Concord Consolidated Solid Waste membership, could the board offset that per ton cost during the portion of the contract up to a certain figure?
Potentially. We don't have a slush fund of any sort.
No.
We have 100-year closures, 30-year closures, capital reserve for things like emergency generators for the leachate pumps.
But the land.
But the land, okay, here we go. There was a contract that we signed where the guy, and I can't recall it right off the top of my head, although I got it buried in this stack of papers, has paid like $1,400 a month, every month for us to hold the property for him. And it was supposed to be for a length of 2 years. Well, the first year he paid the $1,400. This year he stopped paying in May. Now the co-op still keeps that money because that was part of the contract that we negotiated. If he doesn't respond at this point, because he broke the contract and he wants to reinstitute it, the cost goes up to $10,000 a month from the $1,400 he's paying now. So he's already got like $125,000 or I don't know, whatever it is, invested in this, and he has nothing but a promise that he can be the first one to buy and at what price. There is a company that actually has a Tilton location that is looking to purchase this property. I think it's a warehousing distribution
Multinational
center, maybe.
products.
Whatever it is, they're hot to start moving forward, apparently. But we can't negotiate with them in good faith while there's still any remnants of this deal going on, we will know as of the 16th of January. I think we find out the 15th of January, but we actually have a meeting on the 16th. And we'll know what direction we're heading. We're either gonna get $10,000 a month and finally negotiate a contract, or we'll be selling the property outright, yay, and there will be a certain amount of money that will come back to us, and which when it comes back like that, we don't generally apply it directly to tipping fees. It goes into the general reserve, right, as income, but it would offset part of that. That's just a Band-Aid and kicking it down the road, but at least we get some of that money back. Either way, we should be getting some of that money back, ultimately. There you go. There's the silver lining, sort of. Grass.
All right.
It's the Grinch.
All right.
In lieu of time, I just will say that I wish my fellow select board members and the residents of the town of Tilton and employees of the town a very Merry Christmas season and a Happy New Year. And I will move on.
Well said.
Town administrator, she's still there?
So you all should have gotten a copy of my weekly update. In there, to be signed file was a letter that Lakes Region Planning Commission asked the board to support their grant application to USDA Solid Waste Management. I assume you all have seen it. I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you don't, if you could just sign it, then we can get that out. Second item, I don't have it. Be thinking about who you want to dedicate the annual report to. You've already selected who the memorial will be for. Our land use technician has resigned, and there's a PAR in your to be signed folder. We would, I think Tim talked about this a little bit in his report. We'd like to post an ad for a new land use technician at 16 hours a week. If you recall, the current land use technician was 20 hours a week. But since we've been without a land use technician, Gail has picked up doing the minutes for, excuse me, for planning and zoning. And Leanne has been very happy with Gail's performance, and Gail is willing to pick that up. She's been able to do it now because things are slower in land use, but that will pick up. So it may require some overtime hours in the future, but if we focus on giving the minutes to Gail, then we can reduce 4 hours for the land use technician from 20 hours to 16 hours. So I just want the board's approval to post an ad for land use technician.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with that, but I have a question. If Gail, it was the land use technician being paid committee secretary wage for doing the minutes?
No, she was not,
Oh, is that
because she was a part-time employee. We've had this discussion before at the board level. I think the board, she was being paid a lesser rate than, because the secretaries are being paid $20.80. Is that right, Tim?
Yes, that's right.
And Janice was making 16 and change. So Gail would be, well, that's a good question, Tim. How are we paying her? At what rate? She's been doing this on her own time right now.
She's been paid her rate of pay. And,
Right.
But because of some other changes recently, and with the board meetings having changed, it's allowed her some more time for other projects. And she's been able to fit in the minutes for those meetings so far without generating any overtime at this point. But she does know that it's available to her, and but it's at her standard.
So, but to Joe's point, question, Tim, what is that? She would get paid overtime. She wouldn't be getting paid a secretary's rate.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, that's better than secretary rate.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure that she's got, all of a sudden adding a pretty significant responsibility, because planning board meetings and zoning board meetings are legal proceedings and have to be spelled out very exactly in case we have to go to court. So, you know, I don't mean to diminish. I've been secretary of various committees and no kind of responsibility like that particular position.
So she would be.
Well,
getting-
I did ask her if she's willing to do it. I asked Leanne if she was happy with the performance. She said Gail does them, you know, she's just very good at doing minutes, and she does them quickly, accurately, so.
She's really got a great system down.
But
Gail does.
I'm not understanding the answer that,
Okay.
would she be getting secretary wage on that, or would she be getting her regular pay
No.
doing the land use minutes?
Her regular wage doing the land use minutes, because it is the same type of activity as her regular job. So, she does minutes for the board, so that's.
She makes a solid wage too. I don't know what the hour.
Her hourly wage is in excess of the secretarial wage.
So you don't want her to take a cut, do you?
I don't, but we didn't treat someone else in that same stead.
That would be a non-public issue, I'm imagining. We can talk about it.
I'm with you.
I just want to make sure she's taken care of.
Absolutely.
Joe, you gotta make sure you're in front of the microphone, just because Jeannie is having a hard time
I
hearing.
understand.
And Gail is aware that there is overtime available, and considering there's no money being charged to the land use technician time, even if we exceeded the amount which we have it in the administrative budget for overtime, you know, we can still consider that, you know, coming from the budget for the land use technician.
Joe, John, sorry.
So we still have the wages for doing that in the land use departments that get transferred over to covers, or, because what's going to happen is if it does go into overtime, we're not using the land use monies.
Right. So
Or is this temporary?
well, we hadn't gotten that far yet, but I would imagine that, you know, in the interim, that wasn't a problem. But I guess it just depends on the workload, and if it does become apparent that every week there's going to be a certain amount of overtime because of the meeting minutes, you know, we'd have to look at that overtime line. Jeannie, am I off base there?
No, as you say, at this point, Gail, she's been able to work that within her regular work day. And I mean, at the point where if it does generate overtime, we have overtime in the administrative budget, right, Tim?
Yes, we do. We do have budget.
Okay. I mean, this particular issue, we could talk about that more if that's a concern of the board. But what I was primarily looking for from you tonight is to approve us putting the ad in the paper for a land use technician, because it's going to take us a while to find somebody.
I'll say yes.
And I know you like to
Yes,
follow the
consensus.
process, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
That's consensus. There's
That's
4 out of the 5.
Joe stepped out.
Okay,
4 of us say yes.
Joe had to step out.
okay, great, thanks. The next item, Chuck Mitchell and other election officials have taken a look. If you recall, there was some discussion a couple of years ago about elections not happening at the high school. So some research was done about other possible venues. The local parish did, and Catherine was involved at the time. They needed a ramp to be handicap accessible. They had the ramp put in. And Chuck and some other folks went over there and looked at it. And I think you all were copied on the email. But basically, they've come back and said they don't think that they want to have elections there. They want to have it back at the high school. Ultimately, it's the board's decision on what you want to do. So I just want to check in with you to see if you concur with us going back to the high school or to the superintendent and talking about the elections, because they're right around the corner.
I'm a yes.
High school,
High school.
High school.
Okay.
If I may point out, we don't have any money budgeted for the school. And that's usually been about $1,100 for the AV services and janitorial services when we were paying that. So I think considering their budget situation, that we'd have to probably add a little bit to our budget for that.
okay. So we added,
3 times.
3 times.
3 times.
So
Because we have 3 elections.
3 times. 3 times.
so 6,000.
Okay, the rest of my report is just FYI. If you've had a chance to look at it, I don't know if you have any questions for me.
No.
Okay. That's it.
May I just ask, considering you just approved that, would you like to add $3,300 to the operating budget for the purposes of, in the event?
Under elections,
It would be in the administrative budget under election and registration.
How did we pay for it before?
We did have budget money. We never budgeted enough for it years ago.
okay. I'll make a motion that we add $3,300 to the administrative budget for the elections,
Election venue.
election venue.
Second.
Any other discussion?
So what line did we take it out of?
High school.
So that would be,
Cost.
Miscellaneous?
no, it would be the election registration so it's in the administrative budget, line 0162 4140 3570. So it's just after salary for the supervisors of the checklist.
Because I remember we raised it up and down according to, we have a presidential election and then adding to it. So we just didn't put it in this year because we have the averages for.
I was actually asked, and the school district, I believe, is fully intending, if we use the facility, we're going to be billed for it. And we hadn't been in certain years. I thought that was because there was an agreement that because Tilton citizens are taxpayers and taxpayers for the district, that there was an additional cost, but they do have to pay wages for the AV personnel to run the system there during our meetings. And then also the janitorial costs of cleaning up and resetting things. So,
Okay, town meeting too, yeah.
right.
Wait,
So-
I just have a question.
Mhm.
We just did it for 3 times. Is it actually 4 times? Because town election, town meeting, fall primaries, and November elections.
The town meeting's different from the election.
Goes on a different line, correct?
Same place though,
Same place. So we would, yes.
so
you're
it's
correct.
4.
So it should be 4,400.
44.
I didn't put a number on it. I
Oh,
just said increased it,
okay.
right?
I thought we
Put
put
a number on
33. I thought we put
I think
33.
you said 33.
I did.
Yeah.
I'll amend it to 4,400.
Second.
Second. All right. Any other discussion?
You know, maybe we can get a good amount from what we, in the budget down. You know, to town meeting. Or a more accurate number.
Oh,
Yeah.
very possibly. I can ask for an estimate from them.
I'm good.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Uh,
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Is that it, Jeannie?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. I'll make a motion to enter non-public session per RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2C. Matters which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy, if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant. Do we have another reason to go in?
Yes, you have, Pat said, RSA A:32A. I can read it unless, you must have a sheet on the
Yeah, A,
table.
Yep.
A.
the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. Was that,
Mr. Chairman, are we going to go into non-public for the first topic and then come out and then go back in?
we've
thought
never
that's-
done that.
I thought that was.
yeah,
what we
but I
had
think that was something that,
instructed that we had to do that.
Yep.
So you couldn't do 2.
all right, so all right, so I guess we have to,
Whose instruction was that?
was that Jeannie's?
That came from, the last NHMA conference, their updated changes to the right to know and how you come in and out of non-public.
Okay.
All right,
Sorry,
so I'll start over.
sorry, Pat.
I make a motion to enter non-public session per RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2C, matters which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy, if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Justin, yes.
Pyra, yes.
Ruggles, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
We are in non-public session at 7:14.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, time being 7:27, I'll make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session December 16th because the reasons justifying the need for the non-public session still remain.
Justin, second.
Seconded, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes. Now, I make a motion to enter non-public session per RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. Roll call vote. Or do I have a second?
Second.
Justin, second.
Second. Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Justin, yes.
Pyra, yes.
Ruggles, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
We are in non-public session at 7:28.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, the time being 8:54, I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session of December 16th, 2021, because the reasons justifying the need for the non-public session still remain.
Jessamine second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Is there any new business to come before the board this evening? Mr. Jessman?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. We are adjourned at 8:55. Have a nice night.